elite level genetics. You line up out of 1,000 people, you already look better than 975 of them. You're thinking, how did I win the genetic lotto? And remember, wherever you stand right now with hard work, discipline, dedication, you can improve a lot. Coach Greg, in today's video, I'm going to explain just how good your genetics really are in the real world. There is so much controversy and debate as to whether you have below average, average, above average, or elite level genetics. So by the end of the video, you are going to know exactly how good your genetics really are. Now remember, your genetics are going to vary from sport to sport, activity to activity, and even within any one given category, it can vary tremendously. For example, you might have amazing genetics for putting on muscle, but your shape is horrible. And so, yeah, you have a bunch of muscle, you enter a bodybuilding competition, and you place last. Your muscles, they just don't look good. Or like Tyson Rydor, you have amazing genetics for the deadlift. You're lifting close to 1,000 pounds about the age of 20. But in comparison, your bench press barely over 300. And so just because you have amazing genetics for strength in one lift, it might not be amazing in another. And the same applies for everything. No matter what sport or activity or job you're trying to go for, your genetics going to vary tremendously. And so, for example, when I'm racing bikes, I'm very good at the sprint or any activity lasting under a minute. But as the distance gets further, my genetics get worse and worse. And so you may in fact have amazing genetics for sprinting, but your ability to perform longer distances, they're not that good. And so I'm going to be going over the 6 categories that define exactly where your genetics fall. Now remember, no matter where your genetics fall, no matter how horrendously awful they are, you can still improve. But the difference is you can only improve by so much. And so if you have the worst of the worst genetics, you can improve by 2 categories. And so the bottom of the barrel, the worst genetics of all, they're horrible genetics. Next up, still not good, shitty genetics. After that, below average genetics, followed by above average genetics. The next category, elite level genetics. And then we have the truly the best of the best, the ultra elite genetics. And so no matter where your genetics fall, you can improve by 2 genetic categories. Remember, this is based on the bell curve, of which most people, they're going to fall somewhere in the middle. As you go further and further, 1, 2, 3 standard deviations away from the mean, they become more and more rare. And so in the first category, 1.5 out of 1,000 of you, you have genetics that are that bad. And so no matter how hard you try, for 10 years with performance enhancing drugs, you can only move up to about the below average physique category. And so think of it, if you had 1,000 people standing there and you lined everyone up from worst physique to best, there'd maybe be 1 person on your left. Everyone else has a better physique than you. And so with 10 years of training, you could probably move up 1 category. Add to that performance enhancing drugs, doing everything perfectly, you could move up 2 categories. And so imagine, you're standing there with 1 person on your left, you train as hard as you could for 5 or 10 years, and you move up to about below average. At best, you might look better than half of that 1,000, so 500 people. You started here, 1 person's on your side, and with all that training, hard work, and PDs, you get to about halfway. You're better than 500 people. And you're thinking, that's not very good, a below average physique? Compared to only being better than 1, if you're better now than 300 or 400, that's an amazing improvement. No one should feel bad about that. And so moving on to shitty genetics. Out of 1,000 people, there's about 25 people on your left. 975 people, they look better than you. You have the genetic potential to get an above average looking physique. And so those of you in this category perhaps had 25 people on your left, you can now move up to 840 give or take. And so that means rather than having 25 people not look as good as you, you're now going to have 840 who don't look as good as you. But you're thinking, no, if you had the best coaching in the world, you trained harder than last time with performance enhancing drugs, you most surely would have an elite level physique. No, you wouldn't. You don't have great genetics, you have shitty genetics. And with shitty genetics, even with all the hard work in the world and performance enhancing drugs, everything, even with my freaking cookbook, you're not going to look like Chris Bumstead. It doesn't work like that. Sorry. Next up, you have below average genetics. But remember, below average genetics compared to people with shitty or horrible genetics, they're way better. With hard work, training, all the supplements, you know what I'm talking about. You can improve 2 steps. And at that level, guess what? You're at 97.5%. That's 975 people out of 1,000 who don't look as good as you. And so if you have below average genetics and you work hard, you really put in the work, you can improve tremendously. But still, you're not going to be the best. There's still 25 people on the right. And so next up, this is where it gets good. You have above average genetics. That means you're about one standard deviation above the mean. And so now with that group of 1,000 people, you already look better than perhaps 840 of them. You have pretty good genetics. You're above average. You have 840 on your left, but there's still 160 on the right. And with hard work, you can go up 2 standard deviations from that. And what would that lead you? Remember all the training, supplements, everything you can possibly do? Well, out of that 1,000 people, there's maybe one person ahead of you. That's pretty freaking amazing. And so if you were born with above average genetics, you train really hard, abuse performance enhancing drugs, you look better than 99.9% of the population. Only about 1 in 1,000 could look better than you. And so does that mean you get an IPE Pro card? Of course not. You really think that with above average genetics and you work hard, use PEDs, you're going to be a professional bodybuilder? Are you kidding me? There's only about 1,000 professional bodybuilders in the entire world. It's not easy. Let me put this into numbers that you'd understand. In the United States, there's about 100 million adult males. If you look better than 99.9% of them, that means there's only 100,000 who look better than you. And so remember, the world's a big place. And so even though you're at the 99.9 percentile, you're still not going to be the best in the world. There's still 100,000 guys in the United States alone that still look better than you, despite the fact that you look better than 99.9% of them. And so you're thinking, well, how do you become The Rock, Mike O'Hearn, Chris Bumstead? Well, let's look up to the next category. You are born with elite level genetics. You line up out of 1,000 people, you already look better than 975 of them. There's only 25 on your right. You're thinking, how did I win the genetic lotto? This is amazing. You can still improve by 2 positions. And you know what that means? Even without performance enhancing drugs, you do it 100% natural. You can move up to looking better than 99.9% of the population. You line up with those 1,000 people and you're natural and you look better than 999 out of 1,000. Really, really impressive. And then you add in PDs, you move up another category. 4 standard deviations above the mean. And so that individual with all the hard working, taking all the supplements, you know what I'm talking about, perhaps only 1 in 50,000 individuals will look better than them. And so depending on the sport you're in or what we're talking about, everyone sees elite as something different than someone else. But for the most part, elite is considered someone who's competitive at a national level. And for the most part, anyone competing at a national or international level is absolutely considered to have elite abilities, elite genetics. If you're a professional in your chosen sport, or superior to the majority of people who are doing what you're doing. And so the issue with trying to categorize people as having elite level genetics is that people fight over what exactly does it mean to be elite. Rich Piana was famous for saying the 5%ers. 5%, those are the people with elite genetics. Out of 100 people, 5 actually have elite genetics. And so it's not as rare as you think. You're thinking it's only the Michael Jordans, the LeBron James, the Lance Armstrongs, people who are winning at the world level. But it's not. Even the worst player on an NBA team has ridiculously amazing genetics. Which brings up the final category, ultra elite genetics. And in this group, standing along with your 1,000 friends, there's only one or perhaps no one who looks better than you. And remember, you're not even training. You just naturally look that gifted. Perhaps you look like Chris Bumstead playing volleyball in high school. How could a guy look this good without using performance enhancing drugs? Well, because the guy has ultra elite genetics. Rare genetics that if honed, if supported by hard training, education, proper diet, and performance enhancing drugs, could lead to one of, if not the best physiques in the entire world. And so with natural training alone, there may only be 1 out of 50,000 individuals who look better than you. Add to that PDs and you move up another standard deviation from the mean. 5 standard deviations above the mean, perhaps a 1 in 10 million physique. And so your genetic potential is what you were born with, the potential of doing something. Remember, this is potential. Without the hard work, the training, all of these factors, you will never reach your true genetic potential. Many people will go to the gym and after a year or 2, while training incorrectly, not pushing themselves, not even following a healthy diet, will assume, hey, I have shitty genetics. Well, really, do you? Out of 1,000 people, were there only 25 people with worse genetics than you? If so, yeah, you do. Doesn't mean you can't get better and move up 2 categories, perhaps have an above average physique. No, you're never going to look elite. You're not going to become a professional bodybuilder. You're not going to bench press 400 pounds. Doesn't mean you can't try. You start out benching 85. And if you train for 10 years, perhaps you bench 270. Does that not seem worth it to you? You couldn't even bench 100 when you started. Now you're doing close to 300 pounds. And no, it's not elite, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And to the same extent, you got above average genetics, but you don't push yourself. You don't work as hard as you could. You improve and look elite. You're better than most people, but why not try that much more? Why not try to improve yourself as much as you can? And take myself, for example. I have ultra elite powerlifting genetics for the bench press. And because of that, through hard work, training, supplementation, and eventually taking performance-enhancing drugs, I was able to break the all-time world record for my age group. Consider that when I was natural, 13 years of age, weighing 120 pounds, I benched 232. How many people can do that at 13? And at my first powerlifting competition at the age of 22 as a junior, my first official powerlifting contest, I set the national record for juniors and open men. My first try. Clearly, I had amazing genetics, ultra elite genetics, and my best natural bench press, 451, weighing a bit over 190. And so you don't bench over 450 natural, weighing under 200 pounds if you don't have ultra elite genetics. And yes, I eventually took performance enhancing drugs and improved that bench press to 529 pounds with a pause weighing under 198. And so do steroids work? Yes, of course they did. I bench press about 80 pounds more with steroids than without. And that's in the same weight class. Now let's take something I don't have elite level genetics for. In fact, it's below average. Cardio. When we did the Canada fitness test when I was young, I was literally the second worst in my class. Below average cardio. But did that stop me? No. I said, I'm going to train hard. Eventually was doing 20 hours of cardio a week, was doing triathlons, joined the swim team, the bike team, the run team. I was more active than anyone, putting in the work. And because of that, guess what happened? I got a lot better. And so perhaps out of that 1,000 people, because I do cardio, only 25 are better than me now. But despite that, did I make the Tour de France? No. Did I even become a professional rider? Nope. Never even made it to the national championships. Was an above average rider within my province. I was alright. But because I didn't have superior genetics, I never had elite genetics, no matter how hard I tried, could never make it to the Tour de France, let alone become a professional rider. But does that mean I don't try? Does that mean I don't enjoy bike racing? Of course not. And so for those of you who criticize me saying, oh, Greg is so pessimistic, don't listen to him. Keep trying. Keep doing your best. When do I not say to do your best? The only difference is I say have realistic goals, realistic expectations. When you start a training program, you think, I want to look like Mike O'Hearn and perhaps the Trend Twins, perhaps Alex Eubank, Jesse James, Will Tennyson. For the most part, unless you have elite level genetics to start with, you're not getting it. And so what do I say? Halfway there. You're the average guy and you're thinking, I want to look like Alex Eubank or perhaps Jesse James, Will Tennyson. Well, chances are you're probably not going to. And so if you train for 6 months and you think, well, I've only put on 7 pounds of muscle, it's not worth it. I expected to at least look like Will Tennyson in a couple of years. And so you get discouraged and you quit. Why? Because you are disappointed with the results. And I like to define happiness as getting at least what you expect and or more. And so when I look at happiness or at least having satisfaction in a person's progress, it's when you at least meet or exceed what you expected. If you expect to train for 3 years and put on 40 pounds of muscle and you put on 20, you're going to be disappointed. But if you only expected to put on 12 and you put on 13, you're going to be ecstatic. Wow, I did even better than I thought. And so when you factor in your genetics, please have realistic goals. If you have shitty genetics, your goal should be to look average. Do not expect to make a night and day transformation and look superior to the majority of the world. It's simply not in the cards for you. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try to look your best. Doesn't mean you shouldn't work out, that you shouldn't try to improve. Everyone can improve. But the amount of improvement you can make, it is in fact predetermined by your genetics. And so even with all the supplements in the world, of course you can take GO2 Max, the main ingredient NMN, has been shown to dramatically improve your cardiovascular ability. But if you have horrible genetics and you take NMN, you're not going to be a professional bike rider. Same applies to Actibuilder. If you have below average genetics, you're not going to win a professional bodybuilding contest by taking this supplement, that supplement, every single supplement I have. And even if you resort to taking performance enhancing drugs, you can't take a shitty physique and make it look better than 99% of the world. It doesn't work like that. And so you can try to categorize yourself in your genetics. You can place 1,000 people and see where you stack up. And remember, wherever you stand right now with hard work, discipline, dedication, you can improve a lot. And so although it might sound daunting, you have below average genetics, and at best you can expect to have above average genetics, consider that you're only better than 25 of 1,000 now. And if you can get better than half, well, that's not bad. Better than 500 people, from being better than 25 to better than 500. That is a huge difference. So the next time you shit on Coach Greg saying, oh, he's so pessimistic, he thinks that we have shitty genetics, we can't improve. Do I really? Now that you've watched the video, you get it, you understand it, and so please write your comments in here. Do I make sense? Do you get it now? Ending it here. And remember, for all the supplements you see here, code Greg 10% off. And remember, we do in fact have supplements on Amazon. You can click the link for that as well. Not GO2 Max as the main ingredient, NMN. It's banned for sale on Amazon, but you can of course get it on my website. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment for the algorithm. Don't forget to get the cookbook, the training book, the coaching plans by me and my team, the Harder Than Last Time clothing line, and my Circle diet book, my life's work, how to lose weight, keep it off. And of course, watch at least one of those two bloops. Follow me in the gram. It's Greg Doucette IB Pro. And until next time, I am out.